Top of the morning to you. Welcome to Weapons of Meme Destruction podcast. It's a very special occasion. No, I haven't been bitten by a little leprechaun. It is the holiest of occasions. It's St. Patty's Day, as you could probably tell by my horrible Irish accent. Well, Dane, how are you feeling on tonight's podcast?
I'm not even going to try to match that energy. Not that I don't want to. It's that I don't have the ability to. But I'm feeling pretty good. Oh, and I can't because I would be culturally appropriating. Whereas you, I think, have a little bit of tinge of Irish in you. Do you know?
I was this close to being a fucking ginger. And with that,
now that you mention it, you look a little gingery right now. Maybe it's the green shirt.
It's coming through me, isn't it?
I think it is.
It's poured out of me. I just can't help it.
The red skin undertones and the reddish hair with the green shirt.
I'm getting a little bit of the creature in me. I was starting to get a little feisty, giving it a freaking one and a two. Give him a jab cross.
He said frickin'. See, he's watching the language. I like it.
Oh, jeez. This isn't Sesame Street. You don't come here for freaking... I said it again.
He did it again.
Fucking. It's fucking. Like, it's not even spelled correctly. It's two O's. It's not even technically a coarse word. But on such a momentous occasion, Dane, I suggest we raise a glass, cheers it, do something for good old St. Paddy driving the druids. I mean, the snakes out of Ireland.
The smoky old Guinness, eh?
No, you almost blew me accent.
Happy St. Paddy's Day. From the boys here at Weapons of Meme Destruction. I know you're getting this a few days after. We're recording on St. Patrick's Day, so...
we're getting proper pissed.
You getting it a little bit late. Blame our crew behind the scenes. It's all their fault.
Well, you never know when they're going to put it out. We always agree on the same day to just maneuverable, apparently, for a few of us.
It's highly malleable to half of the crew.
No mention of it. David, you say too many words of curse. David, you're leaning too far off screen. David, you're cursing again. Why don't you stop fucking cursing? You're screaming a bit too loud. You're cracking too many wise jokes. Why don't you calm her down?
Oh, by the way,
bring her back to center.
By the way, we're going to get the video out 3 weeks after.
By the way, we aren't going to do our goddamn jobs for about 3 shakes of a lamb's tail over here.
Just kidding, boys. We love you. Anywho,
just a little bit of a rib on a special holiday like this. But anyway,
great value. Conor McGregor. Are you ready to?
With great value comes great responsibility. That's Spider-Man. He shoots webs out of his wrists.
Do your thing, Kroger brand, Connor over there.
Let's just don't throw Connor into this. All right, breaking character. All right, first off here, we got a meme to destroy. If you're feeling blue and don't know where to go to, why don't you go to the IRS? It's not as snappy as it was on Broadway.
Yeah, it probably sounded a little better on paper when you wrote it, right?
No, it's feeling blue and don't know where to go to. Why don't you go to the IRS?
I don't know what that theme song is, but let's go with it. Anyway.
The IRS are bad people, is what we're saying. All right. Culture Corner, Hogwarts returns, now with 25% more racism. Oh, you're taking a sip.
Oh, sorry. Was I supposed to say something to that?
You usually do. You usually have your little witty get over
I was imbibing.
Imbibe a little bit more. You want me to pour out of a proper cup into that little thimble over there? I don't know what you're doing.
I was enjoying.
Oh, indeed. All right. Epstein didn't kill himself. Is that the one that we're on?
He writes this stuff down.
I would have forgotten. The old tinkerade, what she used to be. Students would spend their bailout money on beer. Who would have seen that come? College-age students.
I'm shocked.
Spending money irresponsibly. Not thinking about their goddamn future. Well, perhaps if they would have chosen a better, major other than, gender studies in the real world.
Underwater basket weaving.
Exactly. The redundancy department of redundancy, maybe. It's getting a bit redundant. All right. And then the main topic. All right. Let's see if we can get through this one. SVB. Well, I'm going to come out of my accent. SVB won't let me be or let me be me. So let me see your bank statements.
Nice. I appreciate the Eminem reference there.
He didn't
Very
know it
nicely
was coming.
done.
I caught him right. I caught him with
He
the right
did.
proper one.
He
Right
did.
to the rib cage.
That was a solid one. So, with all of that being said, David, should we have another sip and then jump into the show?
A proper sip. One more for good old Ireland.
We'll see you on the other side. Welcome to Weapons of Meme Destruction Podcast, episode 138, which can be found at wmdpodcast.com/138. You can find the audio only on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction. You can get the videos on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and you can also link up with us on our other socials, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Float, Facebook only members or members only Facebook page. Just sign up on the website at $5 a month of support or higher, and that will get you in there. And I think tribal, and that's it, right?
Did I just hear that
That's it.
appropriately? Did you say higher?
What'd I say?
You said something about the Facebook, like you can support or hire.
Yes. No. Yes.
Are we doing kids' birthday
did
parties now?
No, I did say.
Are we gonna mess up a 5-year-old's party? They're all gonna
If
start
you
crying.
trust
no,
us-
taxation is theft, you little assholes. It's time you learned.
Yes. Just drop us a note on the website and tell us what you want us to come terrorize your kids with. We can dress up as IRS agents or, Joe Biden and sniff them, whatever it takes.
Just check them in the bouncy house. Whatever you want. Whatever you want.
So, no, because we have 3 tiers. We have $5 a month, $10 a month, $15 a month. If you just sign up at $5 a month, that gets you into the Facebook page. If you do 10, that gets you to the Facebook page plus more. 15,
Ooh.
Facebook page plus more. So that's why I said at the $5 a month or higher, please go the full way and do the 15.
HIGHER.
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly.
Got it.
Anywho, with that
Just
being
don't want to
said,
end up in a dark alley doing things that I never would tell my mom I did. That's all I'm saying.
we wouldn't tell on you if that happened. So, with that being said, we're jumping into the meme. It's not really a meme to destroy. It's really just something.
We found kind of funny.
It's funny, but it's also
Dark.
just disturbing.
It's
But
dark. It's dark humor. It's dark
perfectly on brand for the government. So, just trolling through social media the other day, as we are balls deep in tax season. There was
Just paid my pound of flesh on Wednesday.
gross. As we are in the reason for the season of crying, giving the government more of the money that you earned.
Support Ukraine.
We have an IRS. I think this comes from like their employee manual because it's, obviously you'll get the point. I mean, nameless, faceless guy has it up next to me so you can read it for yourself. But for the audio only listeners, it is IRS Reg 13.1.10.4.1.
Oh, that's so sexy.
And it is titled, What to Do When the Taxpayer Threatens Suicide. You would think that it would be something like, help them.
It's
or-
not worth it. Hey, there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Maybe
if
say
we-
nice things.
Maybe we set up a monthly payment system.
Well, they're still going to get that coin, but whatever.
Like a rent-a-center kind of thing.
Anyway, the regulation or the employee training or whatever the hell you want to call it goes on to say this, quote, when the taxpayer threatens suicide over the phone, first bullet point, all caps, stay calm and remain on the phone with the taxpayer because you don't want them to kill themselves before they pay their taxes.
I think they got that straight off the suicide hotline, by the way.
I think they did too.
I think that's exactly like, only they put a little IRS sprinkle on it and make sure that they still give you that routing number.
Question 1, taxpayer, do you have a life insurance policy? Question 2, does that policy not pay out in the event of suicide? Question 3, can you fake it to make it look like not a suicide? Question 4, does your insurance policy give you enough to cover your taxes? If so, go for it.
Question number 5. It's really for us. Will we say that this was a COVID death? Absolutely. Hey, wait, did I say the naughty word? That's not going to be. That's just jest.
No,
that was just a joke.
We're not.
Just a joke.
Nobody has died. Okay. Never mind. We're not digging into that hole.
Just
We're
surface
we
only.
want the YouTube people
Surface
to not be
only.
cut out already.
That's the only hole we won't dig into, by the way.
So unless the satire wasn't very clear to you, that my 4-step question script to the taxpayer is not what it actually says. But would you be at all surprised if that's exactly what it said? I mean, that's how these cretins work, right? You are nothing but tax cattle. And one thing that I wanted to point out about this thing is all throughout, and you're going to say, oh, Dane, that's nitpicky. You know, the IRS, that's all they deal with is taxpayers. So why wouldn't they call everybody taxpayers? Like, I don't know. Maybe when you're dealing with the topic of suicide, you might have the decency to call them a human being, a citizen even. If you want to keep it within the context of, you know, they're a part of the nation, we can call them something other than just, you know, tax cattle, taxpayer. But anyway, no, that's all you are to these people. You are taxpayer,
Your
nameless,
social
faceless
security
taxpayer. Yeah, your number. You're somebody that they can go milk for as much as they can. You know, just as they don't milk you too much because they want to make sure you stay productive so they can keep milking you for longer. But make no mistake, folks, you are there to be milked, and that is it.
Usually,
And you're not going to like it.
I'm usually all for that kind of behavior. But, you know, I think that if the IRS had to get elected, or at least some of their officials did, maybe they'd change a little bit of this vernacular. And at least fake it like the rest of the politicians have to. But no, they don't have to. They have a government job. And as we've seen with the post office, you really can't get fired from that kind of thing. So, of course, instead, the only thing that they should say, if they had a heart, is if taxpayer or if human being that we would like to acquire their money from threatens suicide,
Sentient,
tell them
unique,
it's going to be
beautiful
okay.
soul.
We can have this conversation another day. Call the suicide hotline. I'm sure nameless, faceless person can like put a little link right here. If you have any of those thoughts, think this is text
1-800 don't do it.
Yeah, there's always tomorrow. Watch Annie. I don't know. It's a hard knock life. But what I will say is that no, suicide is a serious thing. It's not to be trifled with at all. If you do, and as a public service announcement from your two co-hosts here, if you are feeling down, blue, and on that path, please do call somebody, reach out. Mental health is very, very tenuous nowadays.
Well, David just had to go and take it to Seriousville.
Yeah, that's what I always do.
him.
I'm the Debbie Downer. But it just shows where their mind's truly at.
Yeah.
When they won't even like let you off the phone. No, make sure you get that cell. This is Wolf of Wall Street kind of shit.
Yeah.
Like no is never an answer.
Yeah. And it says, you know, just one last thing before we move on. The note at the bottom of there, they got a few bullet points, you know, ask concerned questions, respond effectively, determine information needed to notify authorities, blah, blah, blah. The note at the end I thought was rather entertaining. TAS, I don't know what that stands for. I'm assuming tax agent
Provocateur.
Slappy. TAS employees are not expected to encourage are not expected or encouraged to, quote, counsel or provide therapy to any taxpayer. So, you know, definitely don't try to help them, and definitely don't tell them, hey, this thing that you might want to kill yourself over, this massive chunk out of the money that you earn that's going to put you into bankruptcy. We're not going to work our way out of trying to, you know, lessen your financial burden. We're just going to make sure you don't kill yourself because you got a few more years of work left ahead of you that we can leech off of.
Fun little question just to tie it all up. Do you think they're talking about like the Jeff Bezoses and the Elon Musks committing suicide?
Probably not.
But that's why
if I was a betting man.
But that's why they said that they hired all these 87,000 extra agents, right?
Of course.
To track down this corporate fraud. Like what corporation threatens to blow their brains out? Oh. So this is probably more of like an individual level.
Yeah.
Kind of
And, you know, real low on the socioeconomic rung, probably.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ooh. That kind of goes against what they were saying, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think it does. All right. So moving on to the culture corner, we have a bar in Sacramento, a pub. Sorry.
Oh,
Very appropriate
please.
for, even though this happened
Down to the old pep
a few days ago. We have a pub in Sacramento because why wouldn't it be in California, right? Who kowtows to of all things Antifa.
We get it.
The moral titans that are Antifa. And the article is Sacramento pub apologizes after Antifa condemns it for showing Harry Potter video game footage. If you remember a few episodes ago, I think we've talked about it on a couple episodes, the Hogwarts Legacy video game that has the T in LGBT losing their minds because of its obvious association with J.K. Rowling. And anyway, so Antifa apparently brought their bats and chains and stuff to yell at a pub for and automatic dildos to a pub to get mad at them for showing Hogwarts Legacy video game footage in the pub. And again, like I said, the Sacramento pub has since apologized because why not only negotiate with terrorists but apologize to them. But we'll get into what exactly Antifa was upset about the game here in a moment.
I mean, I can only imagine, is this like an Antifa pub? Like, do a lot of their patrons support Antifa? Well, I guess it is California, so maybe they do.
Right, Sacramento of all, the capital.
Eesh. Yeah, I was going to say, like, those fucking Antifers aren't going to be in a pub of all places. That's not.
I know.
It's not where their kind are, right? They're out there fighting injustice wherever they see it and not taking too much for a job well done,
Yeah, punching people with MAGA hats, that kind of thing.
The real racists out there.
Yeah.
Doing the Batman shit, only not Batman-like.
Time well spent, those Antifa folks.
Right.
Time well spent. Anyway, the sub title to the main title says, quote, the Antifa account blasted the pub, claiming its staff, quote, turned on a live stream for customers. Jeez, why can't I talk tonight? Turned on a live stream for customers of the transphobic, anti-Semitic, and racist video game. Now, from David and I's previous coverage of Hogwarts Legacy, the transphobic one is obvious, like we said. J.K. Rowling, as a TERF, has her opinions about transgenderism as it relates to feminism and blah, blah, blah. So that one I understood. But when I first read this, I was like, anti-Semitic and I understand in the super leftist Antifa, what's left of their mental capacity, that everything that they disagree with is racist and bigoted and whatever. I get that, right? They just throw these labels around willy-nilly. But I was like, how in the hell did they pull out of their ass? Sorry, bad words. How do they pull out of their tuchus?
Not a bad word.
Not when you're referring to the animal. Otherwise, context. How do you pull out of your derriere the fact that the game is anti-Semitic or racist? Like, how would they... David, what were your thoughts when you first heard that? Where you're like, did you even try to figure out where they were going with that, or did you know right out of the
first,
gates?
I was like, that's just dumb. How could a video game be racist, especially when it has black characters, white characters, Asian characters, pretty much every type of human that you could possibly see. And come to find out from my lovely co-host over here, doesn't she just look lovely tonight in her little black tie and suit
I would have had a green one, but I don't have one.
Green's not a good color for us.
I haven't bought a green tie since one time I saw...
He says in a green shirt.
Super detour here. I saw a situation one time where a meteorologist, because they have the green screen behind him.
Yeah.
He wore a green tie, and so the map was on his tie, and people were making fun of him. And
can't mess it up.
So I was like, even though we don't have a green screen, we got green lights.
Yeah.
We're festive.
Look at that.
Ever since then, I just said I will never buy a green tie, but maybe I should do it just for these once a year episodes.
You never know. I meant to get some cool glasses, but they didn't have them.
But you can't pinch me because there's green back here, okay? I might not be wearing it, but I am associated with it. So pinch yourself. Anyway, sorry. Detour over. Back on tracks.
So I've come to two conclusions. One, they're just swinging wild, Francine. and they're just trying to hit whatever they can. They're going back to their old playbook of just call it every bad name in the book. Or option B, they're playing a huge mind game, and this is actually a really funny joke.
I mean, I laugh at them every time.
Because I'm going to wait for you to describe how this game is racist, and then I'm going to explain my point on the huge psyop that they're running. That is going to be a very funny joke.
Okay. So I'll separate out the buckets for anti-Semitic and racist claims just for a moment, but they're actually one and the same, I think. I did very tertiary investigation into what they could possibly be referring to as
like
anti-Semitic
their
and
accusations.
racist. Right, exactly. So if they're referring to something else as being racist, maybe I missed it. I didn't read a whole bunch of articles, and I really could care less than a negative amount about these people to actually care about what their concerns are. But anyway, the racism is not as clearly obvious as the anti-Semitic claim, but I think they're one and the same. And that claim is that the goblins in the Harry Potter universe,
A fictional character in
Exactly.
the fictional universe,
happen to be the, runners, managers, owners, organizers, whatever, of the Gringotts Bank. Gringotts, however you pronounce it.
Gringotts.
And based on the way they are described and then depicted in movies and everything else like that, including this game, is that according to the, leftist brain drivel, that is anti-Semitic because these goblins have allegedly Jewish features, and the fact that they are running the banks in the Hogwarts universe is further evidence of J.K. Rowling's anti-Semitism, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I fully
you forgot
concede.
one thing too, by the way.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. What was that?
The nose.
What
They cited
Wait.
the nose too.
did I say?
You didn't say it.
Okay. Okay. Yes, they say that in addition to their occupation, they have. What's
Large proboscises.
What's the word? So I don't get see. This is the stupid thing, right?
Yes.
I
So
have
you'll
to worry
say
about.
it, but an algorithm will hear it and not have
Right.
any
I
context.
have to figure out how to convey the message without being canceled for something that came up in their brains.
Right.
This
is what pulls my train, my conspiracy train, into station 9 3/4.
All right.
All right.
So you're going to jump off on that in just 1 second. Okay.
Okay.
So in addition to their occupation, their physical description, both apparently in the books and in media, so whether it be the movies, the video game, etc., has features that I guess traditionally for people who actually were throughout history, let's, break Godwin's law and say the Nazis, when they would depict Jewish individuals, they would create caricatures, nose and looking kind of like miserly and all of that kind of stuff. And that's the way these goblins appear in both apparently in the Harry Potter description and in the game Hogwarts Legacy. So that's why it's allegedly anti-Semitic. And that's why also similarly why it's racist, because you're, anti-Semitism is just racism, but more narrowly defined to one group. So with that being said, that's the claim from, again, the moral authorities that are Antifa. Refer back to Chaz for, how, much they should be trusted to run society. And then now I'm going to let David tell you his 2 points, assuming I haven't talked so long that he forgot what they were.
No, of course not. Okay, so here comes the conspiracy theory. Well, it's not even conspiracy theory. This is just banal. There's no real. If that's truly what they think, then like Dane says, the IQ right around room temperature, yada, yada, yada. But what I think they also might be doing here is, if they did this on purpose, now if they did it unintentionally, they're letting their weenie hang out of their sundress or whatever they're wearing. By noting that a made-up fictional beast of myth in a made-up fictional world, in a made-up fictional universe, has the same characteristics as what are those called? I'm blanking on it right now. Stereotypes. You followed stereotypes that were characteristics of this made up thing, and you took it upon yourself to apply those into the real world to the people that have them. So either you're making a huge joke saying that you're calling a video game racist or a storyline racist or a piece of cinema or a piece of art or entertainment racist through your own racist goggles. Now, if that was your joke, Antifa, that's hilarious. And I want you to take credit for it. Because that's like some deep-seated, like Bill Hicks kind of like a joke within a joke that teaches a lesson kind of thing. But if that wasn't your intention, then I'd argue that you're the racists because you're the ones that say that those characteristics are indicative of that, and that is racist for them to do that. You're looking at it through racist colored glasses. So thusly, we arrive back. You're hypocritical. And the universe does not like a paradox. You are your own paradox. You hate fascists, but employ fascistic tactics. You hate racism, but use that lens to view the world. I could go on. It's you are your own joke. And when you wake up one day and realize that, the world will probably be a better place. That's all I'll say.
I could not possibly agree more. So I will say in closing on this segment, I will say that I am going to try my best to be a neutral arbiter here and say that I'll give you the arguments for both sides, right? Because we have a bit of a chicken or an egg scenario. On the one hand, you could say, as David said in point 2, that this is just pure projection. Is that because they have built up these anti-Semitic tropes in their own brain, or they have internalized them to such a degree that they see it everywhere where it's not, or it wasn't intended. And so by pointing it out and saying, oh, you made the goblins and Harry Potter look just this way, and you made the goblins run the banks in the Harry Potter universe, that means you're anti-Semitic. Well, maybe that means you're anti-Semitic because that's the only way you're capable of thinking about someone with those particular type of features or in that particular type of job is associated with the thing anti-Semitism. That's one way to see it. That's the anti-Antifa way to see it. The other way to see it is, well, they do have the features they have, and they do have the jobs they have in the Harry Potter universe, and so maybe it was intentional. I find that kind of hard to believe because I haven't seen or heard, as opposed to heard transgender comments, I haven't seen or heard anything from J.K. Rowling that would suggest that she's in any way anti-Semitic. And then if you pile it on top of that, like what is one of the tropes of anti-Semites, right, is that, apparently, Jews run all of the media, like the entertainment, Hollywood, et cetera, et cetera.
Damn it, you just took my joke.
Well, sorry. I'm sure you'll still have it because mine's not joking. Mine's more serious. Your joke is still going to be left to you. Is that, Harry Potter is a major entertainment franchise in terms of movies, video games, and everything else in between. And if it were true, as the anti-Semites claim that, that group of people controls all of that, do you really think that they would be pushing an anti-Semitic trope? I don't think that that's the case. So for Antifa to claim that J.K. Rowling is both not only anti-transgender, but also anti-Semitic and racist because of these particular characters in her universe, seems to be a little bit of a stretch. So, but again, that's the neutral play. That's the argument from both sides. You decide which you think is true. I lean personally towards the side that they're simply projecting, is that because they have internalized these tropes themselves, they see it everywhere where it's not, and then they call you the bad person for not seeing it, or they're somehow more morally virtuous for seeing it before you, that kind of thing. So anyway, that's where I'll leave it. I hope I didn't destroy David's joke. We're going to see if he can pull it out.
All I was gonna ask is if J.K. Rowling had any of them like directing movies, or had like a casting couch where young starlets would come in and, you know, because the Jews run Hollywood, according to Yee. Anyway, I've got a third caveat that kind of tacks on to like, or maybe before, when they were 16-year-old assholes watching a movie and they saw this, they leaned over in a theater or their house, wherever they're watching, is like the dude with a big nose running a bank, you know, and went, Jew. And then his friend like started chuckling and stuff like that. So he still feels guilty that he made that joke. So now that he's woke, he has to stand up because of that guilt and make his guilt everyone else's problem and call everyone else racist when he feels bad about that joke that he made when he was 16.
I would just suggest to you, dear listener and viewer, before we move on, I would just suggest to you that the group of people that run around town lighting trash cans on fire, hitting people over the head with bike chains, you know, saying that it's okay to punch a Nazi when Nazi is such a nebulous, ill-defined term that could apply to pretty much anybody that's marginally to the right of whatever they believe in. I would suggest to you that that group of people is not terribly credentialed in the realm of being able to call out people for doing bad things. That's about as general as I can make that statement.
By the way, I appreciate the landmine that you walked through with the proboscis thing. That was very nice.
What proboscis thing?
You're going to go right back into the landmine if we start going through it.
We're not going to do it.
I'm just commending you.
Listen, I'm going to take the commendation and we're going to move on to the next thing.
Next song. Next song. Next.
So, with that being said, we are now moving on to the Epstein segment where we have Bernie Sanders appearing recently on Bill Maher, and they were discussing.
Why'd you say it so weird?
I
Maher.
always
Just
Maher. I always mess up his name.
What did I say? Weird. He's Maher.
Bro, did your voice just do auto-tune?
Maher. You went Maher.
You auto-tuned your voice. That was impressive.
Thank you.
Maher. Bill Maher.
Bill Maher.
Bill Maher.
Bill
Okay.
Maher. Just
if you say it quick, it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
If you try to
just get through it.
It's always throwing me off like that.
That's how I pursue my sex life. Just get through it. They won't know you're bad if you just get through it.
So anyway, Senator Sanders was on Bill Maher recently, and they were talking student loan forgiveness. And Bill, I gotta say, listen, Bill, for me personally, is somebody that reiterates the point that nobody, I want to know if I can say this. Almost everybody is not beyond the point of no return. They can always come back. And what I mean by that is like most of Bill Maher's career, I would, and probably still to this day, we would disagree on probably 90% of policies and things like that. But I really got to say that Bill Maher has turned a corner in the sense that he is, despite his left leanings, and I'm sure he would still consider himself a Democrat, a leftist, whatever, on certain issues, and this being one of them, he is much, much more inclined to let logic and reason not blind him, or he doesn't let his ideology blind him to logic and reason. And so kudos to him. I can still applaud him, you know, and again, that's not to say that what I think about everything is always right all the time. I'm just saying that somebody who I, until a few years ago, had despised, you know, giving him a second chance because, you know, he's proving to be somebody who's capable of critical thought and stepping outside of the push to always say and do the right thing, right? The cancel mob and stuff like that. So kudos to Bill, and especially on this point of pushing back on Bernie Sanders' student loan forgiveness program.
Well, it seems to think, and then again, to harken on to your, you know, kudos for Bill, it seems to be like Bill, Joey Rogues, a bunch of other ones that they've tried to cancel in the past. Louis C.K.
I mean, Elon considered himself left of center until they started attacking him. Yeah.
Perfect. And he's like, I didn't switch to conservative. You guys just moved so far away from me that I stayed in the same part and then became right wing.
I appear conservative by comparison. Yeah.
But and that's the thing is that it's funny when people in the entertainment industry that become bigger than the entertainment industry, they don't have to toe the party line.
Yeah.
When they can actually say the things that we're all thinking, they'll say it. But the people that don't, that come out and keep toting that party line, I want to get that next movie, I want to get that next role. They're always the ones that are telling you that, hey, you know, if you vote red, you guys want a civil war. You guys didn't get the vaccine, you uneducated fucks. Like, that's, I mean, again, it's just so clear. It's that when the people can actually say what they want to, they don't lose the plot. They don't lose touch with reality. But when they have to kowtow, they'll say whatever they have to get that next starring role. Brie Larson, she almost talked herself out of Mrs. Marvel. I'm not going to call it Captain Marvel, it's Mrs. Marvel. But she said, we need more diversity in the MCU universe. Like, perfect, let's start with your role. And then
yeah,
all of a sudden, they start backing up when you start holding them with their feet to the fire of what they say. So I don't know. It's just food for thought.
So anyway, the most recent entry into the Bill Maher, speaking reason to insanity. Like I said, he had Bernie Sanders on and they were talking about the student loan forgiveness. And Bill, which I'm going to play for you here in a second, it's about a 35 second clip. Bill reads off to Bernie some statistics from a poll of the people who would be the beneficiaries of student loan forgiveness and what they would do with that money. And as Nameless Faceless Guy puts the video up next to me, for those of you who are viewers instead of listeners, you'll be able to see Bernie's body language before you hear his response to what Bill has to say. And it is really, really telling. Not only Bernie's body language, but also what his response is. And we'll talk about that on the other side of the clip. So with that being said, let's play the clip. It's, like I said, 35 seconds. And here we go. We start out with Bill talking and then Bernie jumps in. Sorry, I had it on mute.
Technical difficulties.
This is show authenticity.
Please stay tuned.
Okay, so I just want to read you this. And again, this is against why people sometimes, I think, question some of what you're saying. This is a survey, student loan forgiveness recipients. 73% of applicants say they are likely to spend their extra money on non-essential, including vacations, smartphone, drugs, and alcohol. They admitted that to the pollster.
Who is this pollster?
NBC News. 52% they are likely to buy new clothing. 46% they would use the money for vacation and eat out at restaurants.
So, as you can see, or as you did see in the video, as Bill is reading these statistics, you can see Bernie start to squirm. I'm doing the play-by. I know you saw it, viewers, but doing the play-by-play for the listeners. Bernie's starting to squirm a little bit, right? Because these numbers are not comfortable for him. Because again, when somebody like Bernie, when any politician with power says, I'm going to do policy X, I haven't looked 2 steps in front of my nose about what potential negative, unintended consequences might come from my policy. I'm not going to engage in that analysis because human beings are angels, and I have assumed the best about human beings, and that's why anybody who disagrees with my policies is probably evil and hates human beings, right? That's sort of the paradigm that they create when they talk about these type of things, that it's all positive outcomes and there's no unintended consequences, whatever. So when Bernie hears something that would go against the all rainbows and fairies and unicorns outcome of his student loan forgiveness policies, he's visibly uncomfortable, right? He's squirming in his chair. And then, rather than engaging with the data, the first thing that pops into his mind to do, the very first thing, is challenge the source, challenge whoever's saying it, right? And don't get me wrong, there is always an opportunity and there is always room in any discussion for challenging the source, but that's not the first place you go with it. But again, that's what he has, because again, people in the Bernie Sanders mold, right? Everything they want to do is only always ever for good, benevolent motivations and reasons, right? So if there's anything bad that comes out of that, it's not because their policy was bad, don't you see? It's because that there wasn't sufficient, buy-in by the people. The people didn't do it right. This is why totalitarian regimes like the Soviet Union or, the Great Leap Forward in China, this is why they always end in mass death. Because when things go ass-shaped from the grand designer's policy perspective, it's never my policy was bunk. It's always the people didn't buy into the policy sufficiently enough. They weren't true believers like me. I'm not going to apologize. They need to be, cold from society in very literal instances. And so, even though Bernie doesn't have the power of a Stalin or a Mao, right? His tendencies are still the same. It is immediate uncomfortability at facts and figures that don't align with your prevailing narrative. And then it's immediately attack the messenger rather than self-reflection. Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's see what we could have done wrong. Maybe we can tweak the incentives a little bit so this doesn't happen. No, it's challenge. It's shoot the messenger first and ask questions later. So Bernie is just the most recent iteration in a long line dating back to tyrants from time immemorial.
Well, what's the first thing that you always get when you challenge a socialist or a communist that's pushing for a new communistic country or for us to go more socialist? What's the first thing they always say when you challenge them on their stance? It's never been done right. It's like, yeah, no shit. Like that it can't be done right because the people that run the thing that you think is utopia are, what's that word again? Human. And they are privy to all the subtle, wants, greed, power, success, ruling class. These people belong to me and they have to do what I tell them. So that's a problem. And then for the rest of us that get caught in those societies going, well, who could have seen this coming? Oh, all the people that were silenced. And by silence, I mean they were thrown into a train. They were thrown into a camp.
Lined up in front of ditches.
They were, or nowadays, the current version of that is just canceling them. To where they can't get a job. And then what they're doing in China with their social currency, digital social currency, they'll just press a button, shut everything off. You can't buy food, you can't buy this, can't buy that. You might as well shoot them in the goddamn head, but it doesn't cost the bullet. So again, I don't know when it became a problem in this country to have differing viewpoints and to argue those viewpoints out as adults, as intelligent beings. But what it's devolved into is whenever I hear something I don't like, I ask you what your source was. Because Bernie's not alone. That's what happens every time. You could say, well, I loved Obama, and I think that President Trump is the worst president we've ever had. It's like, well, did you know Obama killed a lot of innocent people? It's like, what? It's like, yeah, Obama had the most drone strikes ever. It's like, well, where did you get that information? It's like,
much to Bill Maher's credit, from NBC News.
Right.
From your sources?
You guys. What's the Candace Owen? No, the Republican lady that's always snapping back at these people. She did that with the New York Post.
I mean, it might be Candace. I don't know.
I think is it Owens or
Candace Owens? Yeah.
Is she the black lady that's always standing up and talking back against this?
The leader of the Blexit
so basically she comes
out
and she says I forgot the story and we can cut this out if you want, but she got into a fight literally on social media with the New York Times going, the New York Times challenged her and she said, where did you get this information? She goes, you guys. And then just put all the articles that the New York Post had posted about this particular subject. It's like, well, you never take accountability. And the thing is, again, and to go back to your point, they're never accountable. They're never accountable for any of the bad policies that we were all saying were bad back then. And they all shouted us down, called us racist, anti-Semitic. Any Nazis? MAGA is now closer to Nazi than, Make America Great Again.
According to Bryan Cranston. Yeah.
Yeah. Which may or may not find its way into an episode.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just, I'm at a loss for words. We need to start talking again in this country. And even if you voted for Trump and even if you voted for Biden, you should still be able to have a conversation. That's all I'm saying.
Well, and just before we move on, David's point about the Bernie Sanders of the world always trying to build utopia. I always laugh at that sort of critique to libertarians, right? Is they say, well, yeah, sure, you can have your free market, free voluntary society if human beings were angels, because then you don't need government to regulate everybody because everybody would do the right thing and blah, blah, blah. And I always just throw that back at them and say, who's really more utopian here? You are saying that a select few people, a handful of people, and by all, measures of math, 535 members of Congress, 1 president, and 9 Supreme Court justices is not very many people to dictate all of the rules for 330 million of us. And you want to allocate as much power in that few hands and expect them to not be corrupted. Who has the true view of humanity in mind, right? Are they cut from a different cloth than the rest of us that somehow makes them immune to being corrupted? Are they somehow wiser than 330 million of us pursuing our own interests where we are experts on our own lives much more than they could ever be?
The numbers may surprise you.
Right? It's incredibly utopian to think that a few managers over literally millions, or if you want to take it out to the global context, talking about the World Economic Forum, managing billions of unique human lives with their own interests and talents and access to resources and everything else like that, that a select handful of people could even manage all of that if they were perfect angels, and B, more realistically, not be completely corrupted because they're fallible humans just like the rest of us, which is truly more utopian, right? Our view is that human beings are not solely good or solely evil, but that they respond to incentives. And that the things that you put in front of them, and generally speaking, most human beings are going to do whatever they perceive to be in their best interest. Sometimes that manifests in greed. And sometimes that manifests in all kinds of negative outcomes that human action takes, or that takes place given a certain set of facts and incentives. But I would rather have that messy, chaotic situation where human beings are allowed to pursue their own interests, because the incentives can often align to where them pursuing their own incentives actually has these positive externalities that help everybody else. Like in pursuit of profit, in order to gain more customers, I have to give them a satisfactory customer experience. I have to in some way make their lives marginally better so that they choose to voluntarily give me their money. That's not utopian at all. That's just aligning the incentives into a direction that we want humanity to go, which is be of use to other human beings. And then once we're all of use to each other, we can work together towards larger goals that takes more of us to hopefully push the entire species forward. That's not utopian at all. That's real. That's reality. So I would suggest to you, if you have that accusation lobbed at you, or maybe you think it yourself, it's not the libertarians that are utopian. It's the Bernie Sanders of the world that are utopian, that they can just create any policy they want and it's only going to have good outcomes and not account for the fact that, college students are probably going to spend free money on beer, parties, and probably drugs. Shocker. They're not going to invest it and buy their first property. Some might, but not all. And according to NBC, 73% said that they won't. So that's a pretty large chunk when you're talking about the government handing out trillions of dollars to people who didn't earn it.
Like I said before, it's trusting a college student to make a prudent decision when all he wants to do is get laid and get drunk. Sorry. Anyway, with that being said, main topic.
Main topic for the week, we are talking the bank collapse going on in the United States, but it's having ripple effects now to other parts of the world, with Credit Suisse recently saying that they need a few $100 billion because they're facing a liquidity crisis. This happened I want to say it got started last Friday, the Friday before St. Patrick's Day 2023, when the Silicon Valley Bank went under within a matter of hours. I think it was like 36 hours from the point that the good old-fashioned bank run started until they were completely out of assets to satisfy customer demands for their deposits. There's a lot to get into the weeds about how this happened and all this kind of stuff. You're going to hear, if you haven't already, from the mainstream sources that this is all of deregulation, right? The same thing they said in 2008, as if the 100+ regulatory bodies at the state and federal level that were existing pre-2008 weren't quite enough. Tom Woods makes this point all the time. So if there were something like 110 different regulatory bodies at the state and federal level regulating the financial system, that only if we had that 111th agency, that would have fixed it. Right?
Well,
110 wasn't enough.
It's the same thing they do.
111 would have been perfect.
Every time they fuck up, they're like, well, if we just would have had more money, we wouldn't have spent so much money.
That's
like, what? If we would have had more money, we would have lowered the deficit. Are you sure? Okay. Seems counterintuitive, but I'll give you the keys to the car, 3-year-old. You go ahead.
You've had a lot of money for a long time, and look where we are.
And then you show back up a year later, and you're like, so that deficit, huh? It's like, it's tricky. It's a tricky thing.
Yeah.
All we need is a little more money. So you're going to have to pay us more, okay? And by the way, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you. So,
yeah.
Again, I don't know how many times we have to beat ourselves over the head with the same hammer that more government, more regulation leads to worse outcomes. Just look at Palestine?
East Palestine.
Yeah, East Palestine. Yeah. That was regulated by the government. When was the last time that they were health and safety checked or...
It had been a hot minute.
Since about World War I. Just roundabout then. So you might, when something weighs, 50,000 trillion tons?
Yeah.
And is traveling at a speed of Mach Schnell across the world or across the states with, I don't know, just about the worst fucking shit you could possibly have, refuse, chemicals, and all that good stuff. Maybe you should check the tires every now and again.
And, to David's point about, sorry, we screwed up with all the money you gave us. Just give us more money and we'll fix it this time. I don't know if this originated from him. This is the first place I saw it, so I want to give credit where it's due. Spike Cohen said something to the effect of, all of the people that were telling you literally minutes before Silicon Valley Bank, and I'm going to call it SVB for short, moving forward for this episode.
Kind of like SBF.
Is all the people that were telling you not 5 minutes before it collapsed that everything's under control because they have control are the same people that are going to tell you now that everything went ass-shaped because they didn't have enough control. Right? And that's exactly what they're doing. Every single article that you read at least mentions the fact that, there was a Trump era deregulation in 2018 that, repealed this certain aspect of the Dodd-Frank bill that was passed after the 2008 collapse. And that repeal of that one regulation, that's what caused this entire thing to explode. If you have to suspend credulity to believe that not only did that one regulation impact everything, especially when you consider the size and scope of the Dodd-Frank Act, which eventually went into law, that they just narrowly carved out this one thing and that within a couple years that causes an entire collapse, I don't know what to tell you. Get a lobotomy. Because if that's simplistic of an explanation is all it takes to convince you that, government doesn't have enough power, I think it needs a little bit more, then you need way more help than this podcast can possibly provide to you. And I know, I'm not talking to our viewers and listeners. Again, that self-selected group is much smarter than that, but your friend, your family, anytime you come across these articles, your ears should immediately perk up that you're being fed a line of bullshit.
Of course, we'll question the sources too.
Right. But So with SVB in particular, the kind of nuts and bolts of the situation, and it gets into where we really want to focus. We're just going to throw out the fact that there is that argument that deregulation caused it. But really what this is a systemic failure in a system that is government monopoly controlled, starting with the Federal Reserve. And we'll tie that nice little bow here at the end. But what happened to SVB in particular is a few years ago, with about $200 billion of capital, they purchased U.S. Treasury bonds because they wanted to have that money at least making money while they were keeping it on their balance sheets. And if you'll remember a few years ago, pre-COVID, before the Fed had to start really ratcheting up interest rates to get inflation under control, the interest rate, the federal funds rate, was super low. So when you bought government bonds at that rate, you were only going to get a certain amount of interest gain on those government bonds. Well, fast forward, COVID, inflation. The Fed now starts to have jack up interest rates to combat inflation. And that basically made SVB's bonds worthless because SVB had these bonds, say, at 1.87% when they purchased them. And now the federal funds rate is north of 4-5% now. So when they go try to sell these bonds back, when they need to get the capital to pay their deposits who are demanding their money, the rightful owners of that money, the people that put it in the bank in the first place, they have to sell their bonds for pennies on the dollar. So that $200 billion that SVB didn't correctly risk manage was basically worthless. And so what you had is an old-fashioned bank run. The first customer realizes that something's screwed up. He says, I want my money back. SVB says, okay, here you go. But then customer 2, then 22, then 2002, then 20,002. I don't know how many customers they had, but you get the point. The more the run happens, eventually SVB runs out of liquidity. They can't give the people the money that they deposited. And so, what did the government do to a government-created problem? They bailed out all the malactors, the people engaged in all of the malfeasance. Because don't you know that when sophisticated, suit and tie banksters screw up, we gotta bail them out. But when the American people get in a bind, often because of government action, screw you.
And I know what
Give
you're
us
thinking.
more money, taxpayer, but don't commit suicide.
And I know what you're thinking. David, this isn't 2008. But it is. Again, we saw the warning signs back then, led to one of the biggest economic catastrophes of our generation. And who got saved again? Too big to fail. Save the banks. CEOs got bonuses. Oh, fun fact, true to the SVB guys before the bank went under. You know what they did? Wrote themselves gigantic bonuses right before it went under.
Yeah.
Fun. So the same people that said that we could have done this better, but we just needed to regulate it more. To go back to Dane's point, and I'm like, maybe don't call him stupid. Maybe don't just like try to save him. Like try to be nice to him, kill him with kindness. No, if they truly believe that all that is needed is more government regulation in a bank, after we've seen, well, we don't even know how this is going to play out. We're still in like that little teeter totter of like, well, that bank went down, and then another bank went down. Are they all going to go down? We don't know. So right now we're in the middle of it. We'll see how it pans out. But these are the same people, like Dane said, 24 hours before the bank went under, said everything's under control. This is all regulatory business. It's just going through a flux right now. We'll have it solved by tomorrow. What happened on the morrow? They wrote themselves gigantic bonuses and sunk the ship, pulled the lever. And the people that let this happen with their oversight are the same people that we trust to tell us if a nuclear missile is coming our way. We trust them with the launch codes to our nuclear arsenal. We trust them to tell us the truth. You think they're going to tell us any sniff of the truth if an ICBM is coming our way? They can't even tell us if this fucking one bank is going to go down or not. Sorry, Fulkin. I don't know how many times can you be beat over the head before you start like questioning things and pushing back a little bit and, you know, not just mindlessly walking off the cliff with the rest of the lemmings. I don't know.
See, and here's the other thing that if it doesn't piss you off, you should definitely be asking why these people continue to think that they can insult your intelligence and get away with it. And what I mean by these people is, I mean the people who claim...
Please, be definitive.
The people who claim, right, lack of regulation is the reason why this happened and blah, blah, blah. Because, you know, they'll say, well, this is just, once again, the free market run amok, despite the fact that the financial system, other than I think like healthcare and maybe energy, but maybe not even more than energy, but I think not as much as healthcare. The financial sector is the most heavily regulated sector in the entire economy, right? So this idea that there's not enough regulation is just patently absurd. But in addition to that, right, they gaslight the living shit out of you by saying, well, they repealed one regulation, that's why this happened. But this entire system is a government orchestrated monopoly, right? The government, elected politicians appoint the Fed board. They're confirmed by the Senate. They get monopoly control of the issue of money with legal tender laws. You're not allowed to, you're not allowed to refuse to accept payment in debts in anything other than U.S. dollars. So they force you to use dollars, right? So this is a government-created system through and through. And then the government passes regulations, and then the government repeals one tiny little sliver of a regulation, and then they say, this is the free market run amok because our government-created system that has monopoly control of money, that has a put based on the whole system that bails it all out with, you know, just rampant inflation by pumping money in the system when shit goes ass-shaped. That system is allegedly the free market.
And by the way,
there's nothing remotely free market about this situation from start to finish. And again, it is the height of gaslighting and insulting your intelligence to suggest otherwise. Yet that's exactly what they want you to believe.
And by the way, if it was such a chaotic market that was so unpredictable, why are so many members of Congress and the Senate and
making money hand over fist,
outperforming every goddamn hedge fund that there is? If it was that crazy, how is that possible?
Yeah.
So again, I'm pushing the bullshit button.
I mean, ask yourself, you've seen these people talk on TV. Do they really seem bright enough to tie their own shoes, let alone to, outpredict the market as consistently and as magnificently as they do? I mean, come on. Who are you going to believe? Them or your own eyeballs? But not only that.
I wouldn't trust them to park my car because they'd end up selling it and be like, I don't know what happened. Anyway, I'll see you later. Bye.
Not only that, but the solution to the problem, right? So what did the Federal Reserve do? What did the government with the Federal Reserve help? What did they do? They bailed them out. And how did they do that? Well, if you'll remember, dating back to April of 2022, when the Fed started tightening because inflation was out of control, in addition to raising rates, what did they do? They had to lower the balance sheet. What that means is the Fed holds assets on their balance sheet. And when they hold tons of assets on their balance sheet, they're artificially keeping the money supply artificially inflated because they're holding the assets on their balance sheet and they're pumping that money into the economy. So right around April 2022, I forget what the Fed balance sheet stood at, but I can tell you the exact number from April 2022 until the SVB collapse. The Fed had decreased its balance sheet by $626 billion. What that means is they had essentially pulled $626 billion worth of liquidity out of the market, right? And that was how they were trying to, get a hold of inflation. What did they do after SVB collapsed? Within 1 week, from April 22 to now, so almost an entire year of decreasing their balance sheet, what did they do in 1 week? They put 50% of that right back up on the balance sheet. They put about $290 some odd billion back on the Fed balance sheet, which is pumping money back into the market. So they said, whoops, we pumped too much in. We're going to start gradually taking it out over the course of a year. Oh shit, things went ass-shaped. Let's put half of that back in the period of 1 week. These are the geniuses that are running your life. These are the geniuses that when you go to your employer and you say, employer, I'm going to agree to work for you and trade hours of my life for dollars. What do you say? Employer says yes. Handshake, you go to work, employer cuts you a check, everybody's happy. A third party, government, steps into the middle of that and says, psych, what you thought you were trading the hours of your life for in terms of dollars doesn't purchase as much as you thought because we just pumped a bunch of money in the economy. By any other definition, that's theft. It's implicit theft. They're not literally pulling the dollars out of your wallet, but it is theft because your $3 used to buy a carton of eggs. Now it can't buy 2 eggs. And this is the system that they have created for you. This is the system that allows them to steal with you, not only explicitly in the terms of taxes, but implicitly in terms of inflation. These are the people that are running your life. And every time somebody in their small group screws up, they get a bailout on your dime.
Do you get a bailout, by the way? Do you get a nice little fat stack of cash? Like
I'm
COVID?
lucky to get a sliver back in terms of a tax return of what they stole from me over the period of the last year for an interest-free loan. That's all I get.
It's I don't like that trade-off.
I know. Doesn't seem fair, does it?
Doesn't seem fair at all, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But you know what? Sometimes, even in the best of occasions, life ain't fair. But what you can do is you can have a nice little sip of Guinness. For those listening, I just sipped my Guinness. And then you can tell the good, kind people that are wearing green today that everyone's Irish on St. Paddy's Day. Where can they find this illustrious episode of Weapons of Meme Destruction?
They can get this episode at wndpodcast.com/138. They can find the audio only on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction. They can get the videos on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey. They can link up with us on our other socials, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook members only page at $5 a month or higher. And then they can also link with us on Float, which is the Facebook competitor, and Tribal. So those are all the places to find us. Also, we have a link down in the show notes page, wherever you're seeing this, that has the link to our merch store. So go over there, buy a shirt, buy a mug, buy a shower curtain, buy anything you want. Other than that, the way to help out the show is to just tell people about us. In addition to you subscribing and sharing on all of those platforms, wherever you choose to listen to or see us from, please tell your friends, tell your family, spread the love, because we are trying to destroy these memes one episode at a time. We're trying to give you the tools to say, I don't think that argument that deregulation caused this thing really holds much water. I'm pretty sure you're full of shit. And in being full of shit, you're trying to give these people more power to steal more money out of my paycheck. If that's your gut feeling, you're on the right track. And I'm sure you have friends and family that have that same gut feeling, and they would also enjoy the show. So thank you in advance for everything you do to spread us far and wide, and for any financial support that you give the show. We really appreciate it.
With all that being said, Danewise Gamgee, mind your Blarney Stones. Hopefully your hangover, I guess it would be 3 days ago, wasn't too bad. Or would it be? God only knows with our video editing and our audio editing. So it could be 27 days from now that you had a hangover from St. Paddy's. But as long as it was a safe one, mind your Blarney Stones, stay safe, and more importantly, stay free.